preparing for live streaming. So this will be my first time using YouTube Live on my YouTube channel, which is Madicel TV for anyone who doesn't know. That's on Madicel TV. And we're going to try to also go live. Hopefully we won't have to worry about all of that. So just a moment. Let me get all of these little things worked out. We work out all of these details. All right. Okay, took care of that. Thank you. So you have on the Zoom, you have the chat. You can chat with me here. There's an area for you to put your questions. So that is available for you. So please make sure you utilize those as you need them. And I am going to check on one more thing. Okay. So just a second. Let me double check something. Yeah, this is a lot of extra stuff going on here. So forgive me as I just make an attempt. I'm going to also record this. My name is Sandra Johnson, and I am a family emotional wellness coach. I also deal with human relationships. So I call myself a relationship coach, but it is human relationships. And those relationships we have in the family, in romantic relationships, on the job, at school, any human dynamics relationships. I love to be able to speak into and encourage, especially when we're having problems connecting in our relationships. So thank you for those who are joining me on Zoom. As I said, I'm doing a YouTube live, and I was trying to do my Facebook, and for some reasons I had a little bit of trouble with that. So I'm not going to worry about it, but I am going to record this. And if anybody wants the recording, you can always reach out to me on my email, and that is Sandra, SANDRA, at the Madicel Group. That's THEMADISELGROUP.com. TheMadicelGroup.com. Thank you for joining me tonight. This workshop is called Parent Wellness, and it will be a series that I'm going to do throughout the rest of this year, and with hopes of encouraging our families, our parents specifically. Make sure I said it's parent wellness. So encouraging our parents, because I think we're just living in some different times, as everybody knows very well. And I think a lot of pressure, a lot of undue pressure or extra pressure has definitely come on our parents in this time period. And I definitely want to keep them encouraged. So I want to keep you encouraged. So for those who might come up on this video, understand we're going to be talking about parenting and encouraging that relationship. Again, if you're watching this and you're a part of my Zoom, you're welcome to chat with me and be a part of the Q&A, which we are going to have a live Q&A. If there's any questions, you can send it to the email. I'll look at the email, but I'll also be looking at my screen here in Zoom to see if we have any questions that can be answered. So the first thing I want to do, now that I've introduced myself, Sandra Johnson, I'm known as Coach Sandra or Miss Sandra, and I want to make sure that we start with a poll. So for the people who are in this with me, there's a poll that I'm going to launch. It has 2 questions on it, and the questions are, you have to choose your favorite character trait. And so I gave you the character trait of honesty, respect, kindness, dependable, compassion. So you're going to choose one of those that would be your favorite. And then the next item is, who has the most influence on your children or your family? And you're going to answer that one. And that's going to be, the options are social media, friends, boyfriend, girlfriend, video games, or none of these. So those who are on the Zoom with me, if you have the opportunity, or if you're in a situation where you can do this, if you could just participate in that quick poll. Again, there's only 2 questions, and you can just go in there and jump on one of those answers really quick. I'll end that poll in just probably about 30 seconds. So 30 seconds. If you have an opportunity to get on that poll, that would be great, just to answer those 2 questions, because we're going to indirectly deal with those particular things tonight, as we just have this talk about some things that I think can be encouraging and supportive to parents that are in the midst of encouraging their young people in this time. All right. So I think we have someone else is viewing. Great. All right. We got that coming up. All right. Great. So this looks really good. I appreciate what we got. So of the 5 things for character traits, I'm going to go ahead and end the polling right now. So we'll finish that, and I'll go ahead and just kind of tell you the results came out like this. So you choose your favorite character trait, and we had honesty, respect, kindness, dependable, and compassion. And I know it's tough to choose. I think all of those are great, but you just needed to choose one for the sake of the poll. And it was a 50-50 split. Honesty and respect are the 2 top winners on the character traits, and that's awesome. And then for the parent, for the young person influence, the question was, who has the most influence on your children or family? And the choices were social media, friends, boyfriend, girlfriend, video games, or none of these. And the results again are 50-50. Social media and friends are our top winners. So thank you very much for participating in that poll. That information is really helpful as we think about this idea of what is happening inside of our families, what is happening with our young people. This is the 21st century. We are in, and I know that's not news to anyone, but we are just in a unique time in this new century. We are in a new situation with a lot of different things that are stirring all around the community, all around the globe, not just in America, but just all around the globe. But of course, we want to focus in on, just zero in on your home, your family, your interactions with your young people. So one of the things I want to first of all say is thank you so much for just joining, just being willing to show up. Thank you for taking some time out just to be a part of this wellness talk. I appreciate it. So, what I'm going to do is give you some thoughts and some support as you parent your young person, because I think it is, I'm going to talk generally about some things, but you have to figure out how it works for your house, how these statements can be helpful for you to process some things. So, when I talk about parent emotional wellness, I am talking about your well-being. You as a beautiful human, mom, dad, aunt, uncle, godparent, grandparent, however you're influencing this younger generation. And you could be a teacher out there. Again, you may have several different hats that you wear, different roles that you play. But our teachers, administrators, staff who work in our school systems, all important roles for influencing the youth in this generation. So, what I want to start with is I would like to encourage our parents not to focus all of your attention or so much of your attention on being right or wrong. So we're going to start there. We've got this thing that happens with this right versus wrong, and I think it's a tug of war. And sometimes it is too much. I think it's too much on you. I think the society puts it on you. You put it on yourself. It may even come from within your family, the spouse. Sometimes we put undue pressure on people about the idea of right versus wrong. So that's one of the things I want us to first lean in on. I want you to not focus so much on being right or wrong in the guidance that you're giving to your children. Your young person, however, their age or however you say that. I'd like for you to place deeper consideration on the truth that you have a capacity for great influence. So that's our word for tonight. So, as I may have said already, this series, I'm going to do the second Thursday of each month following this one. So October and November, definitely, and we'll see what happens with December, but the second Thursday of those months, and you'll get a notification to be invited to it if you'd like to come back and hear me keep going in the series. So our word is influence. You are a influencer. And I think it's interesting. That's a word or a phrase that gets used around the idea of social media. But I need us to recognize something. Social media has made the word popular. They didn't invent the word or the concept. You as an influencer, your influence is very powerful in the life of your young person. Hear that. Even if your young person does not show any evidence of being influenced by you or even wanting to be influenced by you, you are still making an impact. So I need you to be encouraged. I need you to be encouraged even through the tough stuff. And we've just been dealt a lot of extra tough stuff on top of what was already tough when you're a young person and you're making a transition. So keep that in your mind. We'll deal more with that in some coming months. The idea of transition, but influence is the word I want you to think of tonight. You're an influencer. I want you to just be released from that tug of war, of that idea of right versus wrong. Because I want you to think of this: fighting for what is right or helpful is not the same as fighting to be right about everything. As a parent, I need you to consider this, that sometimes as the adult, Your way of thinking might not be right for the circumstance, for the situation. Take that in. Your way of thinking might not be right. The way you would work it out, that was when you were a teenager. And for this generation, you talk about when you were a teenager, that would mean it was when the dinosaurs were around. And it doesn't matter how old you are, you're still not a youth in their time, in their environment. I try to remind parents of this, not in a judgmental way, but just as a reminder for all of us as adults to remember. We have no idea what it's like to be a teenager during a pandemic. We've never had that before. I'm not saying that they should have less responsibility or less personal accountability, but I also need us to be gracious, be more gracious maybe during this season in helping them to understand and walk through some challenging things as you as the adult have to walk through a ton of challenging things. So with that concept, again, sometimes your way of thinking might not be right. So it's okay. You can let yourself off of the hook. And that's why I said it's not necessary that it's wrong. It just may not be right for the circumstance or the situation. So hang in there in what we're going to hear tonight. As an influencer, I want to encourage you to be a guide. Be a guide. So one of the ways of guiding your young person is going to be to require a proof of life. I might say some things that might be familiar, but you've never heard them used in this context. So let's talk about a proof of life. I want you to require a proof of life when it comes to true maturity. True maturity. Now, this is going to be for you as well, but I want you to think about your young person. Here's something that I hear a lot is this idea of getting good grades. They're doing good in school and they're getting good grades. And for whatever reason, we as adults then will put that in the category of maturity. So I want to say to us that getting good grades is not maturity. Getting good grades is performance. I'll say it again. Getting good grades, if I'm making good grades at school, it's performance. That's not maturity, it's performance. So I want to ask you this question. What character growth is evident in your young person? This is where proof of life comes in. Good grades cannot be a proof of life of maturity. Good grades cannot be a proof of life of maturity. That's a proof of life of performance. If you continue to make school performance the high point, hear this. Why would you get upset when I'm a liar? You see, that's character. Why are you upset when I'm disrespectful? That's character. Why are you upset when my Instagram image is questionable? You see, that's character. That is character. So as I say, influence is our word for tonight. You have to check your influence. You have to check your influence and understand that's your role. You're an influencer. So the question then goes back that I asked, what character growth is evident in your young person? What character growth is expected in your home? Do you assume that healthy character is just being developed? How? You don't assume that a cake drops into the oven and gets cooked. So you can't assume that healthy character is just going to develop, just because that's my baby. That's my girl. That's my son. That's my guy. No, there's got to be active influence on that character, on the character building that has to happen. So understand this about character. Understand, remember, if you have a question or a thought, drop it in there for me. Character is personal. It's something that's internal. It'll have outward signs, but it is happening internally. Internally, and it's a personal thing. Character must be taught, it must be discussed, it must be modeled. So you early on when they were little people, you were teaching them a lot of stuff. Character, I'm sure, was in there. And what I think what happens is we stop talking about it. We just assume they're going to continue to be honest, and we don't talk about it until they get called a liar. But we haven't been talking maybe about honesty. We haven't been talking about integrity, right? So your character must be taught. It must be discussed. That's ongoing, and it must be modeled. This is not about anybody trying to live a perfect life, because that's like totally flawed. Don't even go there. This is about just living real. They see your mess ups, you see your mess ups, call it out and move on. I love the statement that I cannot hope for a better yesterday. I cannot hope for a better yesterday. That is over with. Yesterday is over. I got to do what the best I can with today. Thank you for the person who just joined in on the Zoom. I see you there. So glad you're here. So again, character. It's got to be discussed. It's got to be taught. It's got to be taught. It's got to be discussed. It's got to be modeled. Challenge your young person to find healthy character traits in the community, on the news. That would be incredible. On social media, that would be a miracle, but it's there. Help them when you are, one of the ways of discussing it is asking them what they see, not telling them what they should see, but asking them, again, especially when it's age appropriate. When we're in those tweens and teen years, and you look at what they're already exposed to, start asking tough questions. Ask them to what they see and listen to what they tell you that they're seeing and experiencing in this world that we live in. So I'm going to give you a scenario. And so I'm going to do a little talking role play here. So we're going to, as we talk about modeling great behavior, a part of your emotional health and wellness is about your modeling of healthy behavior, right? So think about this scenario with me. I'm a parent. I get into a heated disagreement with my 16-year-old son. The disagreement has to do with his chores that are just really done sloppy. They are not done well. I believe I've shown him how to do them well, and they still are just junk, for lack of a better term, right? They don't look good. My response, I verbally attack not only the chores, right? I go into talking about other areas of his life. I pick something and I attack other areas of his life. These things have nothing to do with the chores. I know very well that my words were very mean and hurtful. I have the knowledge. I think it, I feel it. I'm like, this is so yucky. Why did I say that? Why is this garbage coming out of my mouth? So now I've got some stuff I need to think about. So here's some questions. If I offend my son or daughter, if I offend them, do I go back and apologize? Here's a character trait. That's caring, and that's being responsible. Caring and responsible. So do I go back and apologize? Second question, do I admit that I was wrong? That's about integrity and humility. See, these are not words. They're not learning this behavior at school. They're not going to learn it from any of the national news. So they got to learn it in your home. They got to learn it under your teaching. Do I ask for forgiveness when I know I've hurt him? I know my words were ugly. That character trait is being vulnerable. Being vulnerable. There's a whole lot I could go on and talk to you about that, but we'll save it for another time. It is a very powerful word that's not championed, unfortunately, in our culture. We don't champion the idea of being vulnerable because we're told we can't show weakness. Really? I don't think that's been good for us. It's not working out. Here's something that I might say after I've offended my son or my, whichever young person I'm dealing with. I might think, you know what? They'll just get over it. They'll just get over it. I find that one highly interesting because it is a lie, a major lie. So they don't get over it. All of us know if you're dealing with anyone over the age of 2, but definitely a teenager and a teenager, they do not, and young adults, they do not get over it. Here's something that happens. A young person, what they'll do is they will make a deposit of that thing you did, your hurtful behavior. They'll make a deposit into the never forget bank of my youth, or the I hate my parent credit union, and they will plot the perfect time for a withdrawal, which will include overdraft fees. I hope y'all are catching what I'm doing with words here. Play on words. He or she will take out more than what was deposited into the emotional bank. So what you may have done like this, they see it like that. It's huge. And they're going to come back with a vengeance. That's human. That is actually just a human behavior. So they're going to take out more than it was deposited into the emotional bank. Then they will go into self-preservation mode, and they're going to treat you with a great level of disrespect because you put that hurtful behavior on them. Here, again, this is just what's happening in a young mind. It is in a young mind that is not fully developed. Let me insert right here so we all understand the way the human brain develops. It is continuing to develop in your young people. The frontal lobe, the decision house station of every human, the frontal lobe does not completely close until they say, this is research says around 25 for a female, and for males between 28 and 30. That's a long time to be not in your right mind. But that is what's happening. And so some of these things that happen, self-preservation, those things are just human behavior, but they're operating on that mode of, if I don't protect myself, no one else will. So they have to do this, and they're doing this with not all of their faculties in place. Yes, those beautiful creatures that we love and enjoy. This is true. So keep that in mind. You, as the adult, as the parent, are working with all of your faculties. Your frontal lobe is done, though there may be days you feel like it's not. It is. So you have to make some better decisions than what they're making. Doesn't mean your decisions will always work out, but you're making better ones. You are held to a higher standard because you got here before they did. When you, as the parent, are working on your emotional wellness, you are not going to be giving an abundance of bad resources to deposit in your young person's negative banking of their thinking. Yes, so I created all of those little fun words to play on words. So a negative banking of their thinking is that deposit where they're making that stuff in that bank. And so the reason it's important is because I have just seen some young people hold grudges, and it's been bitter. And I'm seeing it more and more in the times we're living in, because people are captivated in this situation because we can't do the things we were doing normally. Our routines have all been thrown out the window. And so I want us to think about these things and how you need to put them into practice for your family. So here are a couple of points that I'm going to make, and then I'm going to open it up for any questions that anyone may have. I will check to see if someone did drop something in on the email, to see what's there. So here's some things that you can do to help with your emotional wellness. First thing, know this, that emotional maturity displays itself in change behavior. What I'd like for all of the adults and our parents to remember is I don't want you to be afraid to examine your own behaviors. Sometimes we've gotten bad intel with parenting. I think that sometimes we think, even as an adult, that with them that we have the response, that they're the ones growing up, and somehow we have arrived. We don't say that, but maybe sometimes in our thinking we are thinking that, and then they think that we think that, and then they call us out on it, and then things get really uncomfortable. But my point of it is that you're growing together. You just happen to get here to earth before they did, but you're growing with them. You don't stop growing when you become a parent. So your mind can't stop growing. Your body doesn't stop growing, up or out, whichever direction that it's growing. But it's the idea. We're growing older, but they're growing older. They're younger. It doesn't mean that they are inadequate, that they're insignificant. None of those things are true. They're just younger. It is totally a real possibility that you all are raising geniuses. How do you treat them? How are you treating? How are you influencing future presidents? How are you treating or influencing future teachers, YouTube influencers, game builders, whatever things that these young people may choose to be in their life? You think about, you're an influence on that. So one of the key ways of influencing it is you decide that you're not afraid to examine you as the parent. Let me take a look at my own behaviors. What is my influence giving off? Excuse me. What words are you using about the situation and the person or people that are involved? So if there's a situation going on, there's a behavior going on. So what words are you using about that situation? What words are you saying about the person or the people? Whether it's friends of theirs or not friends of theirs. All of those words are important and they're influential. If you are always speaking, think about this one. If you're always speaking poisonous words, realize that it will eventually influence your life and your well-being. So I need you to think about that as, man, if poison is always on my lips, I'm not healthy. I'm not healthy. So I'm just talking the physical aspect of that. Your emotional health is a part of your physical health. Consider this. If I don't speak life, I don't promote life. If I don't speak life, I don't promote life. There is so much power in your words. Think of that. Like I said, when I was using myself as an example, if I'm always saying negative things to my teenage son, it's going to break him down, which will then affect him as a man. And there's a deeper ripple effect of it affecting him and how he views women because of the way his mom speaks. That was a heavy one for me just because I've seen a lot of hurtful things in our communities. Very hurtful things because of some things that moms have said. They haven't considered the power of their words over their sons. So again, that's about your emotional health. So emotional maturity displays itself in change behavior. So you look and you say, what do I need to change? What do I need to change? Because a lot of times we're always saying, they need to do this better. They need to clean up better. They need to fix that better. They need to comb their hair better. They need to take a shower better. They need to do a whole lot of things better. And if we're putting so much emphasis on what they need to do better, we don't get to see what we got to do better, what we need to do better. It's important, absolutely important. So the second point is going to be the blame game. I want to definitely let you off the hook on this. The blame game. Whose fault is it? Keep this in mind. If they are blaming you, who are you blaming? If they are blaming you, who are you blaming? The implied answer is you blame you. You blame yourself too. And they're beating up on you, and then you start beating up on you with words. That affects your emotional health. That affects how you show your love and affection to them. Here's some support about that area of blame. I need you to say this. It's no one's fault. Why do we have to have somebody we blame all the time? That's something that we really need to think about because we're always looking to blame somebody. It's his fault for not saying this. It's her fault for not telling us that. When it comes down to it, if I'm in a crisis, I need to just work through the crisis. I don't need to spend my time or my wheels saying whose fault it is. It doesn't make me feel any better to say it was your fault. You should have done this better. So say that statement. It's no one's fault. I'm not in control of someone else's behavior. Now that may come as a major newsflash, but no one teaches us that better than children. You know they have their own mind. You know they have their own vision. They have their own hopes. They have their own dreams. They didn't come here to live yours. They came here to be the best version of themselves. So I'm not in control of someone else's behavior. So when they're not doing the things that you think they should be doing, and there's a verbal altercation, sometimes physical altercation that happens around that, pause, step back, and recognize this young person, which you need to remember to empower them with, remind them and say, I apologize. For a moment there, I thought that was about me, but that's really about you. So I'm going to go ahead and let you work it out. I'm going to ask that you be kind and respectful while you work it out, but I really need you to work it out. And back away. Now, this is easy for me to say, but I am daring you to do it. Put more pressure on them and say less because you want them to own their own behaviors and you're not going to try to micromanage in your home. I have had some micromanaging supervisors. I don't like it at all. Hated it, hated it, hated it, hated it. So if we don't want micromanagement on the job, why would I go home and be a micromanager? Why am I trying to micromanage every little event that happens with my children? Something to think about. No judgment, just saying something to think about. First thing was on the blame game, it's no one's fault. I'm not in control of someone else's behavior. And the third one, I must exercise self-control. So I'm telling you all of this because if you're not exercising self-control, you can't even say those other things. You have to exercise self-control. Remember, I am advocating for your emotional wellness. You have to invest in your emotional wellness by taking a look and saying, I need to exercise self-control. I don't need to react that way. I don't have to have a response for everything. And let me go ahead and say this right here too. It's okay if they have the last word. It's okay. Don't lose a relationship with them because you hate that they have the last word. You hate that they get that last statement in. Why do you have to own it? You should really, at this point, when you're talking specifically about a teenager, you've had all these years with them, the verbiage actually should be less and less as they're getting older. Please understand you are on the clock. You will not always be parenting them. Your parenting time is limited. It truly, the way our culture is set up, it is an 18-year span, but actually it's less than that because they start cutting you off. And you start feeling it when they're cutting you off. And they're saying, I don't care about your influence anymore. I don't care about the things that you said. But understand, it's in there. They caught it. There's a lot more about what you've done that they already have. And they're just looking for opportunities, and they're going to have plenty of opportunities to demonstrate your influence. Let yourself off the hook. You weren't given a child to make them into this perfect human being. There is no such thing. They're beautifully flawed so they can be the best version of themselves. I don't know who needed that, but I said it. The third thing we're dealing with your emotional health, I call it angry faces. Angry faces. So if everybody's angry at you, then who are you angry at? If everybody's angry at you, who are you angry at? Hear this. Anger is normal. Anger is a communicator. Anger is an energy. Anger, unchecked, has the potential to hurt, wound, and destroy everything around it. Keep that in mind about anger. It has to be kept in its right place. But a lot of times, your young person is taking a lot of their anger out on you. And then you have to then do something with your anger. We got to talk more. If you can, create opportunities to talk about anger. Don't tell them how they need to feel. Hear how they feel. Everyone is responsible for their own story. If that hurt them, and when you were 14, it didn't hurt you, great. You're not 14 in 2020. Let their story be their story. Let it be totally incredible because you get to hear it. You get to watch some of it. The older they're getting, the less and less of their story that they're actually showing you because they're starting to be independent. They were created to be independent. As you begin or continue to influence healthy character traits, your behavior and teachings will influence how you think and feel about you. You are very important in this talk tonight. You're the highlight of this talk. Your young person is collateral. They're the extra piece. Your emotional wellness is highly valuable. It's so important. We need you to survive, parent. We need you to continue to influence our future leaders. I need you to continue to influence the scientists that are in your home, the doctors that are in your homes, the astronauts that are in your homes. I need you to continue to influence them. For the person who's going to do social services, the person who's going to just do everyday labor, that because they are interested in taking care of people. It's important. Your wellness is important. Know that you are a powerful influence in the life of your young person because they are destined for great things and they will be leading future generations. Keep that in mind too. You have a purpose. Moms, dads, aunts, uncles, godparents, grandparents, influencers, my great adults out there, and they have a purpose. They have a purpose. They did not come to earth to be the mini version of you. They are becoming the full version of their own identity. You are an influence on them. Please keep that in mind. So, what questions do you have? I'm going to take a look to see. Remember, there are opportunities to put questions in this on the screen here. There's a chat area. There's a Q&A area. You can ask any question you would like about any dynamics that are going on. I'm checking right now to see if I had any other questions that were sent to me while we were in the discussion. If you need me to repeat something, you're welcome to ask me to do that. Obviously in the chat, this is for the people in the chat. I see a hand that went up. So the person who just put their hand up, do you have a question? I actually can allow you to talk if you would like to share something. Did you want to share something?
Hello?
Hello?
Okay. I missed half of this meeting, so
That's okay. Did you need me to?
as a quick summary, what exactly were we discussing?
We were discussing tonight, we were talking about influence. And so the highlight, what the word that we focused on tonight is influence. And so I wanted to remind all of our parents that you all are influencers. And even though social media has made the word popular, or you know, the different resources out there in social media, they made the word influencer popular. They didn't invent the word or the idea, because parents have been influencers the whole time. You get to influence a young person like no one else in the universe. And so you're an influencer. So I wanted to focus in on that. I talked about character, that character is not something that, you know, your young person will not wake up. They're not going to bump their head and then wake up and say, I'm going to be honest today. No, that's got to be taught to them. It's got to be discussed, and it's got to be modeled. What is honesty? So you taught it, say you taught it when they were, you know, this little 4 or 5, between 3 and 5, right? So you're talking about don't tell lies. Let's tell the truth, be honest. Well, then we kind of fade out and we just kind of go through life, and we're not talking about it anymore until something happens and they get called a liar. So they get called a liar, then they come back with some type of an attack as a way to preserve themselves. They're going to attack their parents, and then they're not really teachable. They're not trying to hear anything. And so what I'm encouraging is that you have to continue, as long as you're an influencer, you want to continue bringing these topics up. You want to
Well,
talk about your
how
character.
about those parents? All right, and I'm sure there's hundreds of millions of them out there, and I'm sure plenty. Can any of them hear me?
Well, yeah, you're being recorded right now, so we can hear you.
I'm sure plenty of you parents out there try to be good influence on your children, okay? And you say that we're supposed to be the influencers, but once they walk out that door and they go into schools, they go outside and they play with their friends, okay?
Yes.
That's the real influencer. They're the ones that are influencing them, and it totally works against what us parents are trying to teach them. We're trying to influence on them.
That's a good statement. I appreciate it. And so what I'm going to say to that is your influence is, to me, it is unshakable. We just assume that these other people, you think about it now. So they're going to go out. You're right. They go out into schools, they go out into the playground, they go to all these places. And yes, they're being influenced. Absolutely.
But they choose the other
Products,
influencer over
let me
over
finish
us.
answering it. Products are
Okay.
being sold in order to influence them. And so there are people who have meetings to influence your children. They invest a lot of time and money. But so what I'm encouraging is really, and this is about strategy. So I talk about being a strategic parent, is that you start recognizing no one should be putting in more effort to influence your young person than you. But I need you to also trust what you have invested in them. With your influence, trust that it holds. If you're modeling it, you're continuing to stay true to what you have been teaching. Oh, that's going to stick. That's going to stick. They're not growing up and saying, that thing that was said to me on the playground when I was 7, I never forgot it. Because my friend Johnny doesn't have enough sense at 7 to really truly make that big of an influence on your 7-year-old. So yes, they have some influence, but I think that the parental influence is bigger and greater than anyone else's earthly influence. Again, think about it. Other people are the older they get, the more investment in the influence is going to happen. Yeah, you got stuff coming at your young person on every side. So they don't even have to leave your home to be influenced because of the television, the video games, and the music and the social media. So the influence has entered your home, but that's why you have to be a part of that. So you got to be having those conversations. You got to be listening. I always tell parents, you got 2 ears and 1 mouth. We got to listen twice as much as we're speaking. And the older that they get, the less you really are concerned so much about that influence, because you got to think about, you've already invested a ton, but you got to watch it work. You got to watch it. Again, if I'm building a company and I invest in that company and I invest in something, I invest in a product, I got to let that product do what it's been built to do. So you look at, who is your young person? What have you poured into them? How are you learning how to work on you and give them space to be what you've already encouraged them in their life? What influence have you already invested in?
So pretty much loosen the reins and let him make his own mistakes, and he'll figure it out from what we've tried to teach him. And
Well, and I hear what you're saying in that. I would adjust the way I look at that. Um, think of the power of those words. Loosen the reins. Is this a horse or a child, a young person? Again, you don't have to answer it. I don't want you to answer it. I want you to think about how other philosophies have influenced even how we talk about our young people. So hear this one. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, they're not on a leash. You don't want to be thinking that they're on a leash, but I get what you're saying. But sometimes the way we think about it, that's the way we walk it out. So I'm going to loosen the reins. So I think, yeah, the older that they are, you do have to step back, because you have to recognize they're here on earth to become adults. They didn't get here to become bigger versions of kids and babies. They have to start owning their own behavior. Like, one of the things that I try to teach teenagers is I ask them this question. I say to them, are you a leader? And so I'm going to say, so from 14 to 18, if I ask them in America right now, are you a leader? A lot of them will say no. And that is disappointing. And it's because we have said to them, or we have implied, you have to grow up before you're a leader. That's not true. They have to lead their own life. Every young person is a leader. Every child is a leader because they're leading themselves. They don't have to lead your home. I hope they're not leading the family when the parents are available. They don't need to lead the family, but they have to lead their own life. How much space?
That cell block, that's all.
Say that again.
I just don't want to see him wind up leading that cell block. That's the only kind of leader I don't want him to be.
Well, again, but that's not up to you. That's up to him. And so, and that was maybe one of the things that you missed, is that his behavior is his. It doesn't belong to you. His behavior is not even a reflection of you. And again, I think that's just bad intel we have in the culture, that whatever they do, it comes back on the parents, and it's the parents' fault. No, it isn't. It's their, especially when they have a mind to make up, when they are making these decisions and they're out here choosing the wrong things, it's their choice to choose the wrong thing. Well, there's natural consequences. So look, there's a consequence. If it's raining outside and I decide I'm not going to use an umbrella, I am going to get wet. I do not need a parent running over and covering my head and making the rain not make me wet. No, I needed to be responsible enough. I'm going to just say 15 years old. I needed to be responsible enough to take an umbrella. But if I decided with all of my faculties that I have at 15, 16 years old, I'm not going to take an umbrella. Okay, then get wet. And I'm not going to, but they don't need to be badgered about that. Why did you not take an umbrella? Why did you let yourself get wet? Understand, I'm using it as an example. It could be anything like that. When they have their faculties and they are making their own decisions, they have to learn there's consequences. Life, consequences. Sometimes the consequences are natural in life, and sometimes the consequences are human induced. So, if I'm speeding and I get a ticket, that is not a natural consequence. A ticket is not a natural consequence. That is a human induced consequence. But that is my fault for speeding. I can read. I know what the sign, that wasn't a suggestion. It was a speed limit. And when I chose to go over it, I get the consequences for going over it. I can argue that thing all day long, but if I can read that number of 65 and I decided to go 95, no, I need to pay the ticket and move on with life. That's the consequence. I don't need a parent coming in and rescuing me in that. So again, it's really about, I think, there's more to this whole thing. The parent that was just talking to us, there's more to this. And so we're going to talk about more of it as we go through these next couple of months. This will be offered to you, and we'll deal with some different things. I just wanted to remind our parents that your influence is powerful. It is making more, it's making more of an impact than what you even think. I think that sometimes we don't think that our influence is as powerful or dynamic, but it is. It's just sometimes your young person doesn't know how to express that. But sometimes you don't know how to see it. So we have to keep that in mind. Maybe it's the way that we as the adult is looking or viewing that situation. I need to step back and look at, what have I poured into my son or my daughter? What have I poured into them? Well, let me see what it looks like from this angle. So thank you, parent who came on and gave us that. So I'm going to take you back to mute unless you had another question or thought.
No, I'd just like to hear what other parents have to say as well.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. So I hope that if there's anyone else that has another question or a thought, you are welcome to send that in. I'm looking to see if I have any on my Zoom screen here. And I'm also checking my emails because I gave out the email address. If there are other, excuse me, any other questions or thoughts. So I don't see any, and I'll leave it open for maybe another minute before we go ahead and start wrapping this up. As I said before, we will do this. We'll continue the conversation and give other people opportunities to share their thoughts and maybe their questions about the topic of your personal wellness as a parent. I definitely want to just end this by saying I appreciate our parents. We need you. We need you to stay well. We need you to stay out of, as that one parent said, he didn't want his child to be leading in the cell block. And we don't want that either, but we definitely don't want you to be in a cell block, parent, because of these altercations that can happen with your young person. We have a lot of different things that can happen behaviorally because of just the misunderstanding sometimes. And again, I love that parent's heart in just talking about all of the other things that are influences, and they are real things. It is real, the influence that is on your young person. And a lot of times I will just tell you, as someone who has worked with families and young people for 25 years now, I think it's scary. I think the influence sometimes can be very scary, but I really don't empower that influence to have more of an impact than a mom and a dad, an aunt and an uncle, a grandparent. If you are loving on your young person, definitely, I think your impact is bigger and more dominant than anyone else's. I don't want you to think Instagram has more authority than you in your young person's life. They're going to spend more money than you will to keep the attention. Video game companies are going to invest more money and time, probably, just because they're just trying to sell something. The outcome of that young person, they're not as invested in. They're more invested in whatever the immediate satisfaction is. Your investment as a parent, as an influencer, is for their life. It's for their life. And to that parent who asked, should I lighten up? Should I back up some? Should I loosen the reins, so to speak? If the age appropriateness is there, yes. Everything doesn't have to be a battle. Everything doesn't have to be a battle. Parents, you've got to let yourself off the hook. You're not the bait in this situation. And if you make yourself the bait, you're going to be eaten alive, because this younger generation is ferocious. You're going to be eaten alive. So let yourself off the hook, if I can use, this old saying, let yourself off the hook and look at what do you need to do to evaluate. Again, it's not about anybody else's home, it's really about yours. What do you need to do to loosen up some of, maybe if it's too strict, it's too strict. Back up. Why does it have to be so strict? Because you're trying to build some perfect monster? Well, let me tell you, Frankenstein will come. Absolutely. Frankensteins and teenager isms in this generation, they are ugly. They are ugly. They don't know what they're doing with themselves. And somebody gets hurt all the time. You're not trying to build the perfect monster or the perfect teenager or the perfect adult. You really don't even get to do that. You don't get to build the perfect adult. You get to work on yourself. But as a parent, you're an influencer. You're in a relationship with a young person who is easily influenced, even though they don't know it all the time. They are very easily influenced. Sometimes your silence, meaning you choose to be quiet instead of arguing a point, you choose to be quiet. Sometimes that silence can be totally dynamic. Sometimes with you saying, that's okay, I don't have to win this argument. I love you too much to have to win the argument, and keep it like that. There is so much power in that. So much power in that because it's different. They haven't heard it. Young people, they really love thinking they can be an expert on how their parents act and react. And sometimes they're going to do things and say things just to get a reaction out of you. Adjust the reaction. Instead of it being you ready to argue about it, just go ahead and let them know, I obviously need to remind you that I love you right now. Even in this bad mood you're in, I just want you to know I love you. And just walk away. Man, that is dominant. That is powerful. I know there are some teenagers out there who will argue with their shadow. Let them do it. See how it works out for them. Again, thank you for being influencers. Thank you for stopping by and letting me chat with you tonight. I absolutely appreciate your time and your effort. Thanks for the parent that was able to share his thoughts. I appreciate that. Again, you can reach me at Sandra, Sandra, at the Madisel Group, TheMadisel Group. That's GROUP.com. I'm Madisel Coach on all social media platforms. You can even go and look me up on podcast, Madisel Coach, and I'm giving some words of wisdom over there and some words of encouragement for the family on my podcast. So you can check me out there as well. Looking forward to coming back. Thank you to all who came and showed up. Thanks for giving me the claps and the hearts. I'm seeing those. I appreciate those. And please remember, there is a survey at the end of this. Please check that survey out. I would appreciate it. Give me your thoughts. And I'm willing to send you some resources if I can help. All right. So have a good night. Thank you so much and take care. Continue to influence this next generation. You guys are awesome.